Hey guys, welcome back to Fight Tonight channel. Gervonta Davis lauded for a smart decision over Frank Martin fight after potential date and venue makes fans rejoice. After his last fight against Ryan Garcia in April last year, Gervonta Davis will finally return to face his former sparring partner, Frank Martin. Since Martin had helped Tank Davis prepare for the fight against Leo Santa Cruz in 2020. He understands Davis' skills and approach to the sport. Additionally, as Frank Martin is unbeaten with 18 professional wins, including victories over the likes of Artem Harutyunyan and Michael Rivera, Martin is expected to put Davis in a fix in the ring. On that note, Gervonta Davis has now indicated the potential date and venue for the fight against Martin. Since his professional debut in 2013, Gervonta Davis fought in various cities in America, including Washington, Baltimore, Las Vegas, and Brooklyn. Therefore, for the 13th and his first fight in 2024, for the time being, Tank Davis has decided on a venue where he has yet to fight. Lately, talking to social media, TalkSport correspondent Michael Benson informed the boxing world that Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin was being planned for June 22nd in Texas. Gervonta Davis has indicated that his next fight versus Frank Martin is now being planned for June 22nd at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Tank's WBA lightweight world title will be on the line, Benson wrote. As expected, following this tweet by Benson, several people reacted to it. Here is what they are saying. After Benson's tweet, a fan thought Tank made a smart decision. In their opinion, Texas, being huge for boxing, will provide Tank with a ton of new fans. According to one, Frank Martin is the best fighter at 135, besides Shakur and Tank. In their opinion, Davis always fights great competition unlike Devin Haney. Martin is a robotic, musclebound type of fighter and gets hit a lot. Like a lot of fighters that have a lot of muscle, Martin is not very fast and is susceptible to getting hit, especially against opposition with good hand speed. Tank's management at PBC likely has someone from Texas that they are going to put on the undercard. There is no word yet about the pay-per-view price for the Tank vs Martin event on June 22nd. Tank Davis will return to the ring after a 14-month layoff since his 7th-round knockout win over Ryan Garcia last April. It is a shame Tank is choosing to fight so seldom. At this rate, he will see action only 5 or 6 more times in his career before he is old and washed. Tank won't get as much out of the time he has left due to the rarity of his competitions. Martin, 29, is a safe choice for Tank Davis to fight, as he looked bad in his last fight, struggling to defeat Artem Harutyunyan by a 12-round decision last July. That performance was an eye-opener, showing that Martin isn't the fighter that many casual boxing fans had thought he was. On a positive note, the 12th time that the ghost Martin had against Harutyunyan opened the door for him to be selected by Tank Davis management at PBC. If Martin had looked great in that fight, he probably wouldn't be getting this opportunity to face Gervonta. It would have been better if Martin had fought a top 5 contender to earn a title shot against Tank Davis, rather than fighting the 33-year-old Harutyunyan. No one will complain about Martin getting a title shot against Tank Davis if he would beat in 2 or 3 of these guys: Andy Cruz, Keyshawn Davis, Raymond Moratella. Thanks for watching guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.